Hello, and welcome to this first webinar designed specifically for our FE and Skills community. We're offering this in response to need. A number of you have told me that the challenges you face are perhaps different from those facing large universities. So the aim of this series of webinars is to provide a space for us to have some of those conversations about how you're building digital capability in your organisation. Each one of you has already made a significant commitment to this. So my questions are, how are you making the most of your investment? What difference will you be able to demonstrate in July 2020? And what are you putting in place now to enable you to show the positive impact of your work? We're all facing similar questions, so this is an opportunity to exchange ideas and tips with your peers. I hope that the meeting will help you to take some practical next steps back to your own organisations. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Dan, Grace, Fiona, Joe Pilgrim and Joe Wilson, who have all offered to share some of their experiences of using the service. I'll start with a brief update from our side, and there'll be plenty of time for questions and discussion. I'd like to start with some brief introductions. This is our team. My name's Shri, and I expect you've come across most of my other team members at other events and webinars, or perhaps through service emails. Lisa, Claire and Heather are with us on this call today, and we're all happy to answer any specific questions you may have for us. And before we start on the service updates, can I invite those of you present on this call to just say hello and maybe give us a brief introduction, starting with you, perhaps Julian?
Yeah, well, I'm completely new to this whole service, so we signed up this term and we have only just put it through. So I'm at that really early stage where I want to know what people have done with it. I have managed to get some of the questionnaires done, about 2/3 of what I hoped for, but I'm at that stage of actually trying to analyse what it all means. But I'm really here to listen to hear what other people have done. I'm at sixth form college called Varndine College in Brighton. It's about 1,800 students and it's a sixth form with a mixed programme of A-level and BTEC.
Thanks. I'm just moving along in the order that I've got here actually. Grace and Fiona from Lakes College.
Hiya, so I'm Grace from Lakes College in West Cumbria. More of a kind of vocational college. Yeah, we subscribed back in July. Yeah, that's it from us.
Thanks. Got James next on my screen here.
James Kieft from Activate Learning, so we're a group of colleges. We're very similar position to Julian, probably just slightly further behind. We've literally just starting our journey with the service. So interested to hear how people have got on and how they're progressing.
Thanks. Joe Pilgrim.
Hi there. Yeah, my name's Joe Pilgrim. I'm from ACT Training. We've been using the digital capability service since the original pilot, I believe, which is about 2 years ago. And then we've had the paid subscription for about a year. And we've been really pushing that in the last 6 months. And in the last 6 months, we've made it like a mandatory tool for all of our staff to use.
Thanks. And Anne?
Hi, I'm from Activate Learning along with James. We've only just bought into the service, so we're very interested to hear what other people are doing.
Thank you. And Gordon Duffy.
Hi everyone, yeah, my name's Gordon, I'm from Middlesbrough College. Like many others, we've just bought into the service relatively recently, but we're also part of the JISC Analytics project, so we're hoping that this will illuminate and bring together both of those products and give us a bit of insight into what our students can and can't do, but more importantly what the staff can and can't do, I suppose.
Thanks. And Dan?
Hi, yeah, sorry about that. Dan Hallam from South Devon College. We've got about 10,000 students, FE, HE, and 700 staff, and I'll go through in a second our journey of how we've been using the service.
Thank you. Okay, so just very briefly, I'm going to talk about a few updates to our service and just kind of a reminder, you all know this, but there's a lot more to the Building Digital Capability service than the discovery tool alone. And I just want to update you really to some of the recently released features and some things coming soon. So we've recently released an organisational maturity model. I've got a slide about that later on. Some digital wellbeing practice briefing papers, and we've also kind of redesigned our website in response to feedback. So hopefully it's you'll find that easier to use and more useful. But I'll come on to that in a minute. Dates for your diary. The next webinar, which is not just FE, it's for everyone, is on the 29th of January, and that's going to be about adding your own institutional resources, almost like a hands-on workshop. We've got DigiFest coming up 10th and 11th of March, so do put that in your diaries. And also, if you feel that you've done something that you'd like to share with the community, or if you've never been before, it's usually quite a fun event. But we've got an open form on the DigiFest website at the moment where you can submit ideas. So, do let me know. You could either do something together or jointly with someone. We've got a course coming up, on the digital capabilities in the curriculum on the 5th of May in our London office. And of course, in addition to the webinars, we do have 2 face-to-face communities of practice. And the date for the next one is the 21st of May at the University of Northampton. I'm just going to mention the organisational capabilities very, very briefly, because we've recently launched a model. I don't have time to go into it in any depth today, but if it's something you want to find out more about, then do get in touch. It's just basically something that you're able to use within your organisation, and we can support you if that's what you want to do. And it's just in recognition again that if you're considering kind of implementing digital capabilities for individuals, then those organizational factors are a really important thing that you have to think about, and just making sure that all the different aspects are joined up. So get in touch if you'd like more information on that one. And just very quickly, I just want to highlight some new areas on our website. So we've got something called the Subscribers Hub, which just brings together the things that are available to you as subscribers. And there are those 6 areas that you can look at. So building digital capability, tips really on the organizational approach, something about the discovery tool. Some of you may have seen the discovery tool unpacked section. That's all under that heading now. Implementing the discovery tool in your organization. There's a wealth of resources there that I think some people aren't aware of, about how you can engage users, how you can, key points to consider before you implement the tool. So do have a look in there. Guidance on the discovery tool, and of course, something about the community. So we've got presentations in that area about, from all our previous events. So do have a little poke about in there if you have time. And digital capability in the curriculum is the course that I mentioned earlier. Resources we use on the course are actually available there. And again, please do have a chat, because there's some quite in-depth stuff on there that you can use straight away. So let me know if you want to know more about that. And the public pages of our website also we've simplified and enhanced. So those kind of when you mouse over the what is building digital capability on the top, you'll see that there are 3 big sections really about individual capabilities, organizational, and digital well-being, which is obviously a huge area of interest at the moment. So I'm just going to move quickly on from there and hand over to Grace. So get the conversation started. So if you just let me know when you want me to advance the slides, Grace, that would be great. Thank you.
No, that's fine. Can you hear us?
I can hear you fine, yes.
No, it's fine. Okay, yeah, if you can go to the next one, that'd be great. So we just worked through the questions that were on the email inviting us. So we started in July last year. We rolled it out through our digital professionalism pathway, which we'll talk a little bit more about probably in the question and answers, with an emphasis on refreshing and keeping staff's digital skills up to date. We looked at enhancing practice to be able to support learners in developing the digital skills they need for employment and everyday life. So that's the big focus that we have up here. Yeah, if you go to the next one. So far we've had 92 members of staff. They've all completed it through the Pathways course. Again, similar to, I can't remember whoever said it before, it has become mandatory. We've had the support of SLT to do that. And we've had 246 students complete it in their tutorials.
Yeah, I'd also say that our, because I have a responsibility for teaching and learning as well, our initial teacher training course has actually used the results of that, the report, in their evidence portfolios for their qualification. And our external examiner was extremely impressed that they were using that to support their individual learning plans as part of their teaching and learning. So they were identifying actions from that report, putting them into their teaching and learning plans, and then this is coming through in terms of their actual observations, so their teaching and learning observations and their lesson plans. So there is evidence of that having a big impact in terms of teaching and learning.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, if we can go to the next one. To change in practice, hoping to see, so really an increase in confidence and resilience when using technology is a big thing with the staff and learners really here, is confidence and just being open, and that resilience. I think Sarah Knight talked about it at one of the conferences we went to a couple of months ago, actually being able to deal with something when it's doesn't quite look the same as the last time they were on something. And also the awareness of the need to keep digital skills up to date. So we have some tutors who work, say, in construction, who don't understand and maybe don't understand the importance of the learners needing digital skills. They're not quite sure where they fit. So that awareness really, yeah, if we can go to the next one. Impact. So by the end of the academic year, so we're hoping to see a more colourful report. So, you know, the reports that you get, some people have got loads of colour in different areas, some people have got very little. So a more colourful report seems a fitting kind of target. Evidence through teaching and learning, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. In the past, we haven't, in terms of teaching and learning, had a great big focus on technology, but we're now moving towards enhancing our teaching and learning rather than using technology as a gimmick for the lessons, which tutors tended to do previously. So we've been putting forward about the Samir model and the fact that you don't just use technology to give the lessons some sparkle. It has to have a specific purpose in terms of their actually learning. I think some staff are starting to take this on board. It's a bit of a slow process because there's a temptation when the lesson observation period comes up for staff to actually to add a bit of technology. Because that adds a little bit of sparkle to the lesson where it doesn't necessarily have a specific purpose, and that could easily be done in, you know, on paper or in a different type of format. But it is something that we can now use as a discussion point during the observation. So think about the types of technology that are being used and why they're actually using that, you know, that type of technology, and whether or not it is actually useful for the tutors and useful for the learners as well.
It's about that digital literacy, isn't it? About knowing what to use for what and when and what's appropriate. That's the biggest thing.
I think one of the things that is coming out is that the staff don't feel confident enough. Some of the staff definitely don't feel confident enough to support the students. And the students do enjoy having the technology in their lessons, and they do want to see more of that. But they also appreciate that some of the staff have got limited capabilities, and they themselves, although we assume they're digital natives, don't actually have the level of digital skills that we're making those assumptions about, and they need to be supported as well in their digital skills.
The other thing we wanted to do is analyse findings alongside the JISC Insight surveys. So we've, last year we did the staff, the student and the business support staff, so the professional staff as well, and we're looking to do those again this year. So kind of loosely analyse the findings alongside those. Yeah, we can go to the next one. Any plans experience? Yeah, so I know we've looked at adding different modules to the actual JISC kind of interface online, but actually because we have our own pathway, we've kind of fit the JISC into that, if that makes sense. So JISC kind of complements the ETF and other Microsoft Office modules that we've got. So they all work together quite well.
Okay. Excellent.
So using data to gain understanding current digital capabilities. So what's a kind of snapshot of where we are now? And a measure of assessing the impact of our pathway as well. So we're looking to do it again at the end of the year to see what, if what's changed and what kind of interventions we put in place, if they've worked, if they haven't, that kind of thing. So a measure of success, again, very loose because it's not as kind of tangible as that.
Thanks.
Curriculum staff was slow to engage. I think many people probably experienced that. I think we've had a lot more support from, or not support, I should say, engagement from business support staff. But we find that in surveys that go out from our quality team here, business support always come back quicker. Curriculum staff, like, you feel snowed under and everything else. So yeah, prioritising. So that's helped with SLT, kind of give them a nudge every now and again. Also the demand for answers quickly, so something I didn't really expect. So the people who did do it straight away were kind of like, what next? And actually we'd kind of planned to do stuff when everyone had finished, and some people, those kind of early adopters and things really wanted answers straight away, so we had to kind of learn very quickly. But it was a good challenge to have. Yeah, but that's the next one. Do you want to go to this one?
Yeah, so we've, and actually we're in our digital hub now. We've launched a digital hub, so to provide sort of a space, safe space for learning, but also where tutors can sort of get away from the hustle and bustle of the office and be able to come and really focus on developing their digital skills. And producing different materials that they can actually use in class. So it's not always about using technology, but it's about using technology to support their teaching and learning. So it could be just developing, different resources that they're going to use, handouts and things to provide for students. Yeah. We've got some late adopters who have started to surface. So we're seeing more staff who previously have sort of avoided technology or kept a sort of low profile, are beginning to actually come down to the hub and ask for support and help, or come down to have some time to actually work on digital materials. And I think it's just that friendly interface of the capability tools. So people were initially maybe a little bit concerned or a bit hesitant about whether it was going to be actually, was it actually measuring their capability? And they were a little bit worried that they might seem to be lacking in certain areas. But once they've completed it and we've actually gone through everything with them, they realise that it's there to actually support them. So it's not actually a yardstick really to measure them by in terms of their digital capability. So they actually were like, oh, that's okay then. I think they were very happy with the graphical interface that was there as well, that they could instantly look at, and they were looking at each other's as well to see what skills they hadn't developed and others had, so they can actually do some collaborative work from being able to sort of compare that, so to look at their strengths and their areas for development, so they could actually support each other on that. So it's been really useful in that respect as well.
Thank you.
SLT support seems to be essential. The one that's essential. We are really lucky, and I think from other conferences and different visits we've done to FE colleges and universities and things, we are very lucky with the SLT support that we do have in the college. One thing that we wish we had done was the SLT completing the capability first. So leading by example, it's definitely something that we'll take away and do again with any new kind of things that we bring in. They've been really good at continued shout outs. So when it's kind of been low, we've said, can SLT put something out in staff development day, conference days, things like that. And we have seen a big jump when those messages do go out. But I think, it's definitely support that we've been very lucky with. So if it was a new organisation coming into it, I'd definitely try and get that first.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Have you got any questions or?
Hi, it's Gordon here from Middlesbrough College.
Hello.
Hi there. I just had a question about when you mentioned evidencing the impact in teaching and learning. We had a bit of an issue a while back about an initiative that we did along sort of improving digital skills with teachers, and we just saw an increase in more sort of digital content delivery and digital storage. We didn't really see any movement in the co-collaboration of resources or activities with students, and we had an epidemic of Kahoot at the start of every lesson, and students wanting to die if they ever saw another one. And it became a sort of tick box thing that we just bolted this bit of tech on at the start of the lesson because somebody's coming to see that we've got something in there. And I just wondered what successes you've had at seeing any green shoots of sort of complete integration into the fabric of a session.
Well, we actually, when we launched our digital hub, and to be fair, there were technology students as well, but we actually, we did a series of little workshops where we actually had staff who were confident and had examples of good practice come down during the day, and they delivered like little bite-sized 10 to 15 minute sessions that staff could drop into during the day. And they actually did an example of a collaborative page where students, because we use Canvas as our VLE, so they had a group of students down in a classroom further down in the college, and another student that was here. And they gave a live demonstration of them actually updating that page on a particular topic. So they were all working collaboratively on a project in different areas and different aspects. And it's something that is so simple to set up through Canvas, so it worked really, really well, and staff were really impressed at how the students, and they can do that from home as well. So if anybody is absent for whatever reason, they can't get in, then they could actually still contribute to that particular exercise on that particular page. So that worked really well. The examples, the examples of good practice that we used were things like we had the welding tutor came across, and he uses at the start of his lesson Mentimeter to support subject specialist vocabulary and different techniques that he uses. So the students had entered in different techniques and subject specialist vocabulary, and then what he does is he randomly questions them so that they have to explain the different words that appear in the word cloud. So that's developing his questioning techniques. Students can chip in and question as well, and that's part of the digital now coming into the welding workshop. They actually have a smart screen in there that they actually use as they go along. Our tutor from Childhood Studies gave a demonstration of using Sway with embedded into Canvas with a series of different activities that students could use during what we call our progress weeks, where we measure the progress of the students. So we have 6 weekly progress weeks where students have a one-to-one session with their tutor, and while they're doing that, the class are working independently. So it was showing how technology could be used to actually allow the students to work independently, but also it was allowed them to work at their own pace, at different paces, so it differentiated the lesson as well. So the students were able to move on to different sections of the lesson as they wanted. They also have through Canvas mastery paths, which means that when they complete a certain piece of work or a quiz to a certain standard, then it will automatically move them to another piece of work that either reinforces what they've previously been doing or extends and stretches them further. So there were a lot of sort of examples that we tried to put forward during our digital hub launch of this practice, and the people that they could go to and actually talk to who were practitioners. So they weren't necessarily technical experts, so it gave them, some confidence that they could actually do that.
It's almost like giving them permission to talk to each other. It kind of brought people together from different areas of the college who don't normally talk or communicate, and actually it's really getting the buy-in for them to learn from each other. I think it's the key that we've found, isn't it? Yeah, it's the talking and communicating.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Grace and Fiona. Can I move on to Dan now from South Devon College?
Yeah, thanks, Sri. So our journey really started in 1819, where the senior leadership team and a sort of like a buddy from the college leadership team went on a digital leadership course, a year-long course where it was workshops working out what we were going to do with digital, where we wanted to be in the future. And what came out of it was more than IT, and I think that really struck our SLT that, you know, if we wanted to become a digital organisation, it wasn't just about investment in IT, it was also about the staff being able to use the kit, all our policies and procedures being, you know, suited and not knocking against digital culture. So it was a bit of an open door of when Sri sort of like demonstrated the product. It was kind of like, right, well, we're doing this. We need to assess where our staff are, where their skills are. So let's take on this tool. So we wanted to see where the skills gaps were with staff. And what we really liked about the tool was that it was targeted training. So it wasn't just a case of, you know, we've looked at digital skills surveys before, and that's as far as they really go. They just tell you what you can't do. What we like with this tool was it said, well, here's some materials to address your skills gaps. So that saved us a massive job in terms of going, right, okay, we've now identified that these are the gaps, and this is what we need to produce the training materials for. It was there, and we like that self-service element to it as well. We launched it in the July Training and Development Day. Never the best time really to launch anything, because, you know, staff are jaded from the end of the academic year and have got their sights on the holiday. And then in September when they come back, it's kind of like, you know, a lot of that needs repeating to make sure it sticks. But we had an initial uptake, and I think it was quite positive in terms of, you know, discussions with Sri. So we were quite heartened by that. We also then decided that we would build it into the PPDR, the appraisal personal review mechanism. That kicks off in the autumn term, and it wasn't an approach of, you know, you must have a target about IT, because I think we were, or digital, I think we're conscious about this tick box exercise, and we've done initiatives before where, you know, Ofsted have said, oh, equality and diversity needs to be evident, and so people have automatically just done something, you know, at the start of the lesson, there we go, we're compliant with E&D. So we were keen that it wasn't draconian, it wasn't you must have a target, but more about, well, this is the direction of travel that the college is going in. Are you going to be able to keep up with it? Are you going to be, you know, skilled to meet the needs of the learners that are coming through, and the new services and cultural changes that we're bringing through other aspects of the organisation as well. That seems to have worked. Those conversations are happening. We've seen a good uptake there. We like the stats that are coming through. It's allowed us to target some of our training and development days, whereas before we may have made some assumptions about what digital skills needed to be trained. We can now go, right, okay, this is what we're going to deliver and put on. We've found that staff need a bit of help with that. They're not necessarily seeing the connection between what they did on their survey and the results and the training that we're putting on. So we're going to be really explicit and say, if you scored low in your digital creation, this training and development session is for you. So a bit more of a straightforward mapping of interpretation. The next steps really are that longitudinal impact. We want to see, you know, what payback have we had from our efforts and our investment. So we'll keep doing the survey, and ideally, what we'd like is some sort of data integration with our PPDR HR system. But I know that's quite a big ask. Some of the challenges that we had, the mapping of the structures and roles. We had to do quite a lot of work to sort of like explain to the professional services staff, well, which team do you fit into? Because they don't automatically, you know, we don't have the structures in place that necessarily are in the just capability department list. So we needed to help them out with that. But what we really liked was the seamless integration, and I think that caught me out because I was sort of like struggling to log in, and I was just told, well, you just go in, you just launch it, and you go in and it'll authenticate. That was brilliant, but it kind of flummoxed our staff. It flummoxed me because, you know, our usual experience is, well, what's the username and password, and that wasn't the case. It was great to be able to just say, no, you just go in and start. The quality office are now picking up on it as well, and supporting staff to avoid that checklist kind of tick list approach. Trying to build more of a culture, so not saying, have you thought about doing a quiz, or have you thought about, you know, embedding a YouTube video into your PowerPoint, or whatever it might be, but just encouraging that use of digital as more broadly. So that's our experience. Really quite happy with it so far.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions for Dan? Go on, Judith. You're on mute. I don't know if I can unmute you from here.
Okay, I've got it now, yes.
Great.
I was interested that when we did the survey, which we only did recently, more of the professional business staff were a little bit, this isn't for me. And I noticed you sort of referred to that as well. So how did you manage? You said you managed to sort of make it more custom made as in the sort of aftermath of doing the survey.
Yeah, we said to our professional service heads that, you know, the results that we will get, we'll be able to see what the overall picture is for their department, for their section, and it won't be a one-size-fits-all response to that. So if there's a team that, you know, if our marketing team, for example, came back and said they were really low on digital creation, well, that would be their priority. Our management information service team, if they came back and said that their data handling wasn't very strong, then that would be where we'd say, right, okay, that's who we need to target, or those are the skills that we need to target. And then getting underneath that, that's where the discussion at the annual review meetings with the staff hope to get to be able to say, this is what the service is delivering. You know, really, you should have these skills in that. How can we help you move towards being competent?
Do you find? I mean, I must say that I've found it more of a hard sell to business support staff. Do you find that they have very individual needs, or are there common themes that come out?
I think it's common themes, and then within that there are individuals that are way off the mark on some of them, and with the service heads we're looking at those and going, yeah, okay, this member of staff, in order to keep up, in order to help us achieve our digital ambitions, we need them a bit further forward. So I think that's where it will be a bit more targeted, and rather than an encouragement within the PPDR, it might be a bit more, well, let's set a target around how you can increase your data management skills or problem solving and so on. I think there's also within the definitions, there's enough scope for individuals to kind of not pick and choose, but they can use it to steer their development. It's not you must do this, you must use this tool, and that's beneficial. But we also need to help staff understand, well, what does that mean for their day job, and do that interpretation for them and help them with that.
So I've got just one more follow-up, just focusing on that detail again. So do you actually go through it with them one-to-one, what their recommended action is?
Yeah, we
Is that how
ask
it
them
works?
Yeah, we ask them to bring their, I think it's a spider diagram. We ask them to bring their spider diagrams to their PPDR, and we discuss it with them in those meetings.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Really valuable to hear those experiences.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can I quickly move on to Joe, please? Joe Pilgrim.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, so as I sort of mentioned at the introduction, I've been using the capability tool for probably about 2 years now, because we were one of the organisations that were part of the pilot, where we used the tool with a small group, got some good feedback on it. One thing that really came up was the fact that it was a lot quicker than the West Digital Literacy Assessment, which is something that we'd used before with our staff. And then since then, we've had the paid service for almost a year. And then 6 months ago, we decided it was going to be mandatory. So what we did, we made it a compulsory part of the induction process for all of our new staff. And that's been the case. All staff are encouraged to use the tool to get a benchmark. And the idea is, as part of our yearly performance reviews, that staff member retakes the assessment, if you like, and then that promotes a conversation with their manager then, either on a 6-month or 12-month basis, depending on their job role. We have used it with some students as well, but this is more on an ad hoc basis for those learners that aren't doing digital literacy as part of their apprenticeship framework. And we've had very good feedback from it, to be honest. It's all been very positive. No complaints. People, I think, enjoy the fact that it's a quick snapshot of their confidence. They can see what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then from that, then we can target their CPD. And, you know, with their manager, they can identify maybe gaps in their knowledge. And of course, there'll be some gaps that aren't really, you know, relevant to their job role. So you might have a practitioner that would never really use something like spreadsheets, whereas obviously somebody who works in a finance role would use that on a day-to-day basis. So we'll just try to be clever about the sort of courses that we suggested following the use of the tool. We don't work on an academic year, but as I said, we're going to be looking at this on a 6th and a 12-month basis, and that'll just be a continual thing. So we hope that we can measure that improvement over time. In terms of organisational digital confidence and capability, I sit down every 6 months with our HR team, who are responsible for the staff training here at ACT. And we identify gaps as an organisation as a whole, and we look then to see other courses or resources that we've got available to us internally, maybe, that we can offer to staff to address those overall organisational gaps in digital competence. Or if we don't, then we can look for external training. And of course, having the tool and having the data from the tool allows us to take this information to senior management. You know, if we require maybe some extra funding to purchase a particular course. And this is going to be of great use when we roll out our new LMS, which we're hoping to do early next year. So we've engaged with a company called New Spring, who will be providing that, which allows us to upload content, upload courses. So we see the two tools working hand in hand, really. So hopefully we'll be able to offer staff a catalogue of courses. So as soon as they've finished their capability tool, they might identify some gaps that are crucial for their job role. They can then go on the LMS and find those courses to plug those gaps. In terms of data and dashboards, this is something we've actually implemented across our provision, because we believe, in the power of visualizing data. It's a lot easier to get hold of trends and strengths and weaknesses from a visual representation rather than just looking at raw data. So it's really good that we can access sort of visual versions of the capability tool data, so that we can get snapshots, and we can easily screen grab those and share those with the relevant managers. We have had a few challenges in rolling this out. Explaining why it was useful to some managers was the starting point. But then I think they've got used to that now, as we've sort of settled into a process of embedding it within the annual review process that I mentioned earlier. Our biggest success, I would say, so far is usage. I think that's always the hardest thing to get going, because everyone's busy, and if you are busy, a tool like this is maybe, unfortunately, one of the first things that sort of goes by the wayside. But we've really tried to push the importance of it and how staff can use it to really, sharpen their sword, to really improve digitally. So we've really pushed that. And the last time I checked, which admittedly was sort of about 4 weeks ago, we were looking at about 300 completions. So that's, just to put it in context, about 75% of our staff. And obviously that will only increase over time. So we're really quite pleased with that. In terms of tips for any organisations that are either new to the tool or considering it, I would simply say you've just got to embed it as part of your culture, your practices and your procedures. And until you do that, until you reference it in company documents, then people won't know what you're talking about. And people, if they're not aware, then it's just an excuse not to engage. But as soon as it's something that everybody's talking about, then I guess staff feel sort of compelled, because they know their colleagues are using it, they know their managers are asking about it, and that gets people using it. And as I said, when people do use it, when you can persuade them to go onto the tool, then they're going to be a lot more positive, because it's very easy and intuitive to use. That's pretty much it for me, but if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Thanks very much, Joe. It's really useful to have that insight. Yes, I think you were one of our original users, that you, even before we launched.
That's right, yeah.
Time to embed it. Any questions for Joe? The way I've shared my screen, I can't see the chat pane. Can I ask one of my colleagues, Lisa or Claire, whether there are any questions in the chat, please?
There's none that I can see, Shri, at the moment.
No, I can't see any either. I have been monitored.
We've got a question.
Yeah.
Could you just ask in terms of the team, how much team do you have to support strategy?
Sorry, did anybody get that? I couldn't quite hear.
In terms of a team to support your digital strategy, how many people do you have actually supporting that development?
Right, I see. So I suppose in terms of all the people that are involved, we have a staff training officer and her manager, who is the HR manager. So they're pushing it from sort of a compliance point of view. And then internally we have a couple of staff members who were providing system support, so people need help, logging on, accessing the tool, then they would come through to them. And then we have a group maybe of about 5 practitioners who actually make content and courses, actually primarily for learners, but then of course we've now been able to open this up to staff as well, following them completing the tool. So probably in total a team of about 10, but all with very different roles, and all offering something a bit different.
Thanks, Joe. I did have Joe Wilson down on the agenda, but I don't think he's here. Shout if you are, Joe.
Shri, it's Dan. I can I just pick up on that question to Joe about team size
please.
as well?
Yeah, please do.
I think for a similar approach to Joe, it sounds like, is that we've not put a team together. We've assigned it to different people's responsibility. So, you know, the CPD program belongs to the HR team. So, you know, it became the responsibility of the HR manager to own the product. And you know, the IT support, well, that comes through our IT help desk. So, you know, in quality, we've got an quality manager that looks after that. So I think that helps embed it into the culture a bit more as well, that it's not just, it's that team over there, and I'm not sure that we would be able to afford it either, to be able to resource it in that way. So I would kind of recommend seeing, okay, how can you tag it on to people's jobs in a way, which I know sounds, you know, you're overloading them, but embedding it within teams where there's that existing responsibility, I think would be my approach.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I think that's like a recurring theme throughout, isn't it? As if you can kind of embed it into what people are doing already. Always helpful. And I think that that theme of culture, you know, promoting that positive culture came through very strongly in Grace and Fiona's presentation as well. I don't know, do you have anything to add to that, Grace and Fiona? Not sure they can hear.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hello.
Hi, Grace. I was just wondering whether you had anything to add about on the on, you know, how you're embedding the culture and how teams are supporting the use of the tool.
I think we kind of looked at encouraging and building the confidence in staff and confidence to come and ask questions first, and then the capability tool has complemented that. We haven't used the capability tool to change the culture, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
It's been more about changing the culture slowly and not trying to, like, I think if the staff felt we were putting a tool in to try and change it, they would go completely against it. So I think they've seen it just as a helpful tool to help them and us.
Yeah. It's really encouraging. Thank you. So actually, the next section I was going to go into was just for anyone, just a kind of open mic area, really, an open floor. If anybody's got any questions for anyone else, really, or anything to share that you haven't had a chance to. No, anything from Anne or James?
I think what the Lakes said there about not being seen to be done to, I think is also key for us as well. I think we had staff holding back doing the survey because there was a bit of a, you know, maybe they feared that if they were putting their hand up and saying that they weren't competent at doing an aspect of digital, then it would be kind of like, well, that's, you know, turkeys for Christmas. But it was very much, no, you know, this is to help you, and this is, you know, to get you ready for the future, rather than you must do this, and if you can't do it, then you're not for us kind of approach.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think I've also been interested throughout the presentations in the mix between just kind of pointing people to resources offline to do in their own time, and the supported training courses, you know. So, I mean, Dan, you were saying that you had quite structured next steps. I mean, are you, to what extent are you just kind of letting people take charge of their own development as well, you know, just maybe online, just following the resources? Is that something that's happening, do you think, in your organisations?
Yeah, very much so. It's the mixed model. It's where we've identified that the two skills really that need to develop around digital creation and digital participation. So we've said, right, okay, well, because we're still developing those skills, those are the two key areas that we're going to help staff with, and we're going to put that structure and that support in place. Whereas digital communication is, that's quite low. That's at the other end of the scale. Most staff are proficient in that. So, but there will be pockets of people that aren't, and we'll just let them do the self-development kind of aspects of training.
Yeah, no, that's really useful.
It helps with resource utilization. We can't train everybody in all of those areas, and that's again why I really like the tool, is because those resources are there to help guide staff. And one of my frustrations in the past is I know I've got a skills gap here, but where do I look, and how do I know what is good quality resource? And the college can't provide every single piece of training. We're trying to encourage a bit of ownership for staff, but that structure as well, to go, right, okay, well, here you go, here's some resources that we've put our trust in GIST to sort of like quality assure and do that work for us of putting together those resources that we just wouldn't have the time to do.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And I think you said in your presentation that you're keen that people don't see it as a kind of deficit model, that this is what you must be able to do, but much more as a kind of an opportunity to follow interests. Makes people maybe think about things that they might be interested in that they hadn't thought about, that common vocabulary. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else from anyone?
I ask a question about the link to insight experience. Have people used that afterwards or before the digital capability survey? The insight survey, which gives a picture of student experience of their institution's ILT. Has anyone got any tips? I mean, I'm going to do it after Christmas with the students and then with the staff. Is that the wrong way around, or have people used it?
Grace and Kelly and Fiona, sorry. I think Fiona and Grace at Lakes College have been using both services.
Yes. Did you find it useful?
Sorry, can you say again? Sorry.
Well, the question was trying to be careful not to introduce too many inputs, as it were. I've delayed doing the insight experience survey, which I'm hoping to custom make a bit more so I can put in our own Barndean College services. Did you think that worked well? I haven't done it yet. In relation to the capability study.
This is the insight survey.
Yes.
Sorry, it's really...
Yes,
insights,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I think, to be honest, it's given the staff more, again, it's that kind of permission, like that we're asking them how they feel to inform what we do. I think it's given them that kind of opening to say, we want you to help us inform what we prepare for you, as opposed to the capability tool that they're looking at what their skills are and where their skills gaps are, like you were saying before. But I think the insight survey just kind of lets them in a bit more. I think that's the kind of feedback we've had from them particularly.
Can I add something there that might help? There's a case study that isn't yet signed off that I think will help from Cardiff and Vale College, but there is one already on the website from Gloucestershire College. And there are also some examples from HE organisations like York St John's University, where they're using both. And they do seem to work in parallel, because staff and students are feeling invited to contribute and that their views are worth it. And also there are some things built into insights and some survey posters and after survey results things that you can use to say, you said, we have done. And it's all part of engaging them in the conversation, inviting them in and working with them. So I'm sorry, I can't yet share Cardiff and Vale College, I am waiting for a tiny point of principle on sign off, but there are some resources there that cover HE as well as FE, and also some interesting ways in that people are using and introducing the tool. Gloucestershire College have done it with, as they bring new staff on board, they assign them an e-learning mentor, and they do the discovery tool. Then they identify some things they can work on, and by the time they get to the end of their probation period, they have evidence to show what they have done and how they're moving forward. So, and in listening to all of you today, don't be surprised if someone in the new year don't pop up with a little, would you like to tell me more about what you're doing for a case study?
Thanks, Claire. It's really valuable, your insight experience coming in there. Very quickly, in the last minute, can I just ask you whether you want to continue having FE-focused webinars? And yes, I saw a nod there from Julian. I mean, do type stuff into the chat if you haven't got time to say anything. And roughly, I'd be really interested in how often you'd like to have these webinars. Maybe, I mean, we do have the regular webinars, which are open to everybody, to universities as well. And the next one, as I said earlier, is in January. So, oh, I think you're on mute there, Julian.
Every couple of months, perhaps.
And any specific topics that you're interested in?
Analysing the data.
Yeah, an important one.
Making sense of it. Because although I can hear what people have said they've done with it, I'm not quite, it'd be quite good to actually look at it with somebody.
Yeah.
Or hear them talking it over it, a voiceover. This is what this means. It could even be a voiced over version.
Thank you. That's really useful. Yeah, a couple of things in the chat about impact and every few months. Okay, so I'm just aware that it is 2 o'clock, and I just want to thank you all again for taking part, and particularly I want to thank Grace, Fiona, Dan and Joe for their presentations, really insightful. Any last messages from my GIST colleagues?
Only to say that's just been really useful. Thank you so much for sharing all your experiences, and we hope to continue to capture those so that others can learn from them. So again, thank you.
Thanks very much again, everyone, and I'll share the recording and summary notes of the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.